Hi, Don Catalano here from iOptimize Realty. I have an important video for you. This is about the 11 mistakes that people can make when renewing their lease. It's so easy to make a mistake, it's almost like slipping on a banana peel. But boy, you do not want to slip on that costly banana peel because you do it wrong and you could cost your company millions of dollars. And absolutely nobody wants to be that person that costs their company millions of dollars. But don't you worry, in a very quick video, I'm going to show you how you can save your company millions of dollars. You will be the corporate hero, and I'm going to show you how to save yourself up to 90% of your time while doing it. Sounds too good to be true? No, it's not. It's true, and it's fast, and it's coming right to you. I'm going to speak at the speed of a New York air traffic controller that's had 4 cups of coffee. So buckle up, but you're going to learn some great things. Thank you so much. See you soon. Number one, it's often thought of, oh, a renewal, that's easy. It's almost like the buy now button in Amazon. You just go up there and you click it and you got what you got. The problem with that is the renewal clause was negotiated 5 or 10 years ago, long before your company and whoever it was that negotiated that renewal clause would know what the current economic conditions would be. Perhaps we're in boom times. Or perhaps we're in a recession. Macroeconomics make a big difference as far as what the rents will be. Supply versus demand. So just looking at the renewal clause in your lease, or even if you don't have a renewal clause, let's say you don't, but you know that your lease is coming up in a year. What's the difference? You still have to apply the same level of due diligence to considering staying where you're at to perhaps moving to an alternative location. That's going to take work, it's going to take time, but I have some great news for you. I'm going to show you how to save time while perhaps saving your company millions of dollars on your real estate. But whatever you do, do not click on that button. In the lease, it will be send me a renewal notice 6 months to 12 months in advance. You send off that email, boom, it's done. Huge mistake. That alone is the number one problem. It can cost your company millions of dollars. Number 2, the second biggest mistake, doing it yourself. First of all, why would you want to take on that burden? Because to do this right, I'm going to give you the short of it right now. You're going to have to apply the same level of work and due diligence that it would take to find a brand new site. When you think about it intellectually, you know that. So doing it yourself is just taking on tremendous time, effort, exhausting energy if you're really going to do it, if you're really going to save your company money. And doing it yourself, let me make a quick analogy. It's like walking into court without an attorney. Judge, I'm here, I'm going to represent myself. Yeah, I know a little bit about law. You don't know what you don't know. Trust me on that, we're going to go through that. I think by the end of this presentation, you two will agree with that. So doing it yourself, that's mistake number 2. Now, right after that, perhaps even worse than doing it yourself, OMG, using the landlord's broker. They're conflicted. That's like going into court, instead of saying, Judge, I'm here to represent myself, it's like looking over at the other attorney and saying, hey, Judge, I'll use that attorney. That's exactly what it's like. Don't do that. Common sense says don't use the landlord's attorney because they have a legal fiduciary responsibility to get that landlord the best terms and the highest price. Think about that for a second. If you had to move space, let's say you have a sublease and you hire a broker and you give them a 6-month exclusive, do you not expect them to get you the highest possible price? Would you like it if they came in and they start to negotiate against you? No, you would never accept that. Neither will the landlord. So understand the exclusive agent has a fiduciary to the landlord. And even if it's not the same individual, if their company is representing the landlord or landlords that you might look at for alternative locations, they're conflicted out. Don't use that company. Don't use that broker. Now let's talk about that in a little bit greater detail. not using a true tenant rep. Now, what do I mean by a true tenant rep? A true tenant rep is really simple. They do not accept landlord assignments. Their company does not accept landlord assignments because once the company does, they're conflicted out. Even if that individual says, let's say they're in a big company, oh, we're with the corporate services department, please, you got to know better than that. That person reports to the same boss that the landlord brokers report to. That company gets most of its fee income from the local landlords. If those landlords get mad at them, they're no longer eating steak. You better know that even if you're a gigantor company coming into town, feeling your oats, just saying, well, they're really going to get me a great deal. So you think they'll smile, they'll treat you like royalty, but you just intellectually, you got to know that they're getting most of their money from that landlord or landlords in that market area. And you come into town once every 5 to 10 years. So think about that. And another thing to look at, if you don't know whether they're a true tenant rep, just go to their website. See if they have property listings on their website. And if they do, they're conflicted out. Don't use them. It's like using the other side's attorney. It's a huge conflict of interest. The next, not applying the same level of due diligence that you would for looking for a new office. What's the difference financially? If one lease adds up to $20 million and one lease, a renewal adds up to $20 million, it's still a big deal. You still have to put in the amount of due diligence it requires to get competitive, alternative proposals. And that takes work. Landlords and their brokers are not stupid. No, they're actually very smart. And they know if you're playing them or you're sincerely looking at them as an alternative. And that's frankly what you must do. We're going to get into that, but you don't know what you don't know until you go through the whole process. So you have to apply the same level of due diligence, yeah, I can say that, the same level of due diligence that you would for looking for new space. And you know what? You don't know if you're going to stay there. You could think, oh, I love this building, I love this landlord, I love this location. You don't know what the alternatives will offer you. You may change your mind in a few months after you go through the process. That'll be entirely up to you. But the bottom line is you don't know what you don't know. Now, let's talk about not knowing what a tenant rep can do as far as saving you time. They will guide you through the process. A good tenant rep will save you up to 70% of the time that you would normally invest. A great tenant rep will save you 90% of your time or even a little bit more. They know the right questions to ask. They know how to handle, and they will handle for you, the entire RFP process. And that is so crucial. You must send out detailed requests for proposals. They will take care of that for you. They know the right questions to put in there. They will get those back from the various alternative landlords. You must do that. You must set up maximum competition for your tenancy. And that is the way to do that. You're going to go out and tour a lot of properties with them. The landlords are then going to send proposals. There's going to be counter proposals. This takes work back and forth. And they're going to handle the negotiations. They're not going to accept each landlord's first proposal. They're going to come back to those landlords and say, you got to do better. And this is what I would suggest if you really want this deal. That's a lot of back and forth. They'll handle that for you. Then when those offers come in, the first batch and then the second batch, maybe a third batch, they'll do the very sophisticated analysis of the numbers. But it's not just rent. There's a lot of factors that go into that. Go to our office, Finding an Office course. You'll find out more details about that. But there's probably a dozen different factors. It's not just base rent. They'll also handle, as I mentioned, the negotiations back and forth with the landlords. So that is absolutely crucial. And they'll negotiate with your current landlord. Why keep them out of the loop if you want to consider that building? Absolutely. However, they need to know that landlord, your existing landlord, your incumbent landlord, if you want to consider them still, They need to know that you're going out to the market. And when you are working with a great tenant rep, they will absolutely know that. They'll hear it from the marketplace, but they'll also hear it from that tenant rep, because they're going to go right back to that landlord and say, hey, I know you've been with my client for 5 or 10 years, and that's great, and they love you. That's all fine and dandy. However, the CFO of the company and the COO and the CEO said, you know what, now's not the time to waste money. So they've engaged me to go find the best possible deal. And maybe you, the existing landlord, are the best deal. We will soon see. That takes work. You can't just go in there and flim-flam your existing landlord. They're too sophisticated for that. Next, thinking of that a tenant rep is going to cost you. I'm going to give you the short of that. A tenant rep won't cost you. Ironically, it will cost you more, and a lot more, if you don't use a tenant rep. The tenant rep is paid by the landlord. You might say, well, if they're paying, the landlord's paying them, aren't they on the landlord side? Absolutely not. Because the tenant rep is agnostic as far as which landlord pays them. It could be your incumbent, it could be one of the many alternative landlords. You're going to choose the property at the end. They're going to get paid by that landlord. You don't have to pay them, but you're going to get the total benefit of that. The amount of work that a good tenant rep will put in, it's hundreds of hours to get you a great deal. And the landlord, whichever one you choose, they're not choosing the landlord, will pay their fee. So you're getting the benefit of the bargain. Now, what's the landlord get out of that? You might say, scratch your head and say, well, why would the landlord do that? Well, they're getting your tenancy, which they wouldn't have otherwise have been involved with, had a shot at, had it not been for the tenant rep taking you to look at the alternative properties. And even if it winds back where you are, well, you know in your heart of hearts, and your CFO knows. And if they don't, you should let them know that you've done your due diligence and you've driven the price down 20, 30, or even more percentage. You would be surprised. Next, not using the 3 R's. The 3 R's is, well, it's a term that we coined. It's number one, right size. A lot of companies have gone to a hybrid work model. A lot of companies are only using maybe 50% of their existing office space at any one time. So that's the number one savings, is to right size your space. Number two, relocate. Relocate means if you can't get the best deal with your current landlord, you're going to move to a better landlord. Maybe you're going to go up in building and quality at a much lower price. Think about that. Also, under relocate, is this still the right city for you and your company? There are a lot of alternatives. A lot of people have now broadened their horizons. They're not necessarily going to only be in Chicago or New York or LA or San Francisco. Companies have learned there's great talent that has moved, and they want to stay with that talent. Maybe it's moved down south where there's no taxes or low taxes. So you have to consider that. And lastly, renegotiate. Now, when we say renegotiate, guess what? You do not have to wait until it's 1 year out. You can start your renegotiation of office space 2, 3 years out. Yes, you can, if you are a credit tenant and you have something of value to that landlord. A great tenant rep broker will do a blend and extend. So let's say the market, in your market space, let's say New York City, let's say it's $90 a square foot. And because of the high level of vacancy, your tenant rep can get you maybe a deal at $50 a square foot. But you say, oh, but you know what? We got 2 years left on our lease. We got 30 months left on our lease. A great tenant rep, don't be afraid to call them up and engage them early. That's key. We'll go to that landlord. We'll go to the alternatives also and really negotiate fantastic deals for you and go back to that existing landlord and say, yeah, I know we got some lease term left with you, but guess what? If we don't create a deal now, we will be gone at the end of that lease. And as a matter of fact, we may be gone before that because we may sublease out our space. Or maybe that other landlord, or many other landlords, frankly, are so hungry, they'll help us buy out of some of our remaining lease term. You bet your bippy that existing landlord in a slow market, they're going to deal. You may extend your lease X number of years, and it'll be a blend and extend, but you start saving money today, and it can be significant money. It could be millions and millions of dollars. Next mistake. It's right along with what I was just saying, not starting early enough. You may think, well, I'll wait till I'm a year out or 6 months out. Wrong. Don't do that. Start as early as possible. You may be able to start, as I said, 36 months out and start saving money now. You'd be surprised, and you won't know until you engage a pure tenant rep who's working on your side, not the landlord side, to go investigate that for you. Next, not seeing a recession as a tremendous opportunity to save you money and to save the company money and to become a corporate hero in a time of corporate need. Yep, I said that. That's true. Because when you tie in with a great pure tenant rep and you go out to the market and you come back and you say, hey, I've saved $5 million. Well, you've exploited that recession for all it's worth because everything is on sale, but only if you know the process, only if you know the questions to ask and you spend the due diligence required, or better yet, have your tenant rep spend the due diligence that's required and you oversee it. Remember, you're the general and they're the captain. They're going to go do the work and you're going to make the decisions and approve the deal, and you're going to get the credit from the CFO and the COO. So look at recession as an opportunity to save your company money. But remember, corporate real estate requires a lot of due diligence. And the last and biggest mistake is you don't know what you don't know. I guarantee your existing landlord and the alternative landlords don't know how far they're willing to go until you spend the time and your tenant rep guides you through the process, and your tenant rep takes all that work off your plate, but it really applies the due diligence in negotiating back and forth 2 or 3 times with each alternative landlord. That might be 6 possible great alternative landlords, and then your incumbent landlord. So let's say 7. That's a lot of work. They're going to take that burden off your shoulders. But even they don't know how good a deal they will get until they spend the time, because it's human nature. If you ask somebody the price on day 1, well, it's a lot different than what the price will be after they've been competing for 90 days with alternative landlords. And your incumbent landlord especially, they don't know, human nature, they don't know how far they are willing to go to keep you as a tenant until you have actively developed the competition for your tenancy, your credit-worthy tenancy. So you don't know what you don't know, and in the end, that would be the biggest mistake. So wrapping this all up, you want to start early. You want to put a pure tenant rep, not some wannabe, not some wolf in sheep's clothing. You want to put a pure tenant rep on your side as your guide, just as you will have your attorney who will help review your lease. You got to develop that team. You want to start early. Do not be limited by the words in the lease. 1 year out. Start 3 years out, 2 years out if it's a soft market. Consider macroeconomic conditions. So I hope this has been truly helpful to you. It's much easier than you think, and it's much more expensive than you think if you just hit the button, so to speak, and just send in that renewal. Oh yeah, we're renewing, we're staying. Huge mistake. Don't do that. Don Catalano from iOptimize Realty. We have plenty of resources just like this in our learning center. Check it out. You can learn how to save your company millions of dollars. You can be a corporate hero within your company. Imagine going up to the CFO and say, hey, I just saved us $5 million. Yes, it's real. I do it all the time with my clients. You can do it. Get a great pure tenant rep. And if you need help from us or you have any questions, you know what to do. You click on the Contact Us. We'll get right with you. We'll help you on your journey. Thank you so much. Don Catalano signing out from iOptimize Realty.